Bill Vick is a beacon. If you look for people who are surviving pulmonary fibrosis and thriving all the while, if you Google that, you actually find Bill Vick. You find his story. And this is true to a person around the world. If they can get in touch with Bill, he will connect them to the support network and ensures that every one of their concerns gets addressed. So he's a one-man ambassador for wellness around the world.
Just after I was diagnosed, my brother and sister-in-law had found a video clip on Bill Vick talking about how he was fighting IPF.
Living well for me, it's kind of there's four initials, METD. It's movement, it's exercise, eating, it's how you think about things, how you do things. So my life today as a IPF patient living with a terminal disease is probably better than it was 20, 30 years ago because of that attitude of living life fully.
God, it's been my absolutely complete and utter savior of my sanity and my mental health and my physical health. So I'm forever, ever grateful.
My life was built around running and swimming and exercising and lifting weights, and I was in phenomenal condition. But life changes. I was training for a triathlon. I went to the doctor, not because I felt bad, I felt great. I was worried about my times in winning my event. And I'll never forget the day, it's like a frozen in time moment. Doctor sticks his head in the door and comes in. He says, Mr. Vick, we got your test. You've got a lung disease called IPF, or idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. He says that there's no cure, there's no treatment right now. You probably have 2, maybe 3 years to live. And just cold and clinical and frightening.
And we just had to go and learn and live with it. And at the time, there were no support groups. Bill decided that he did not want other people to go through with what we went through.
So I'd say about 3 years into being diagnosed, I recognized that I wasn't getting the kinds of answers I was seeking from doctors or nurses or others. And I thought to myself, you know, there's other people out there doing the same thing I'm doing and trying to come up with solutions and ideas. So let's go and find some.
Bill Vick decided that he wanted to form a support group because not only had he met with us, he'd met with many other patients who found him the same way I did. And he wanted to start a support group where patients could get hope, inspiration, information, you know, and interact with each other, which we all needed so badly. I wanted to learn it all. You know, where's this information? We didn't get to meet with his doctors long enough for me to answer my list of written questions that I took to every meeting. So we've been in this support group, PF Warriors, since the beginning.
We provide literature and guides and speakers. We have speakers come in and talk about this disease and how to live with it. And I think we do a good job in that. We also inspire people. You know, if you don't know that someone else is doing well, how can you do well or have the hope of doing better tomorrow? And we try to instill hope every single day in our membership at large.
I think of support groups as the #1 first line of mental well-being. Really importantly for patients to be hooked up with people who share their experience, but also for caregivers who can have conversations with other caregivers about what their frustrations are, the ways that their needs aren't being met.
PF Warriors are my savior every day. That's the first thing I do when I get up in the morning, make coffee, and I get on. I look for my post to put on the PF Warriors to try to start everybody's day on the right path to happiness for that day.
One thing about the pandemic is more people found us, and we began to have Zoom meetings, and now we're international. You know, it's been amazing to me.
We found ourselves on the first name basis with some of the top research scientists in the pulmonary fibrosis field across the nation, and actually even across the world.
Yeah. When I talk to patients and their families, I often hear a lot about various kinds of struggles that they have at home. A lot of it actually relates to things like oxygen. Sometimes it's getting to pulmonary rehab or medical visits. And other times it has to do with just not understanding the disease and wanting to reach out to other patients that have the disease for more support, which is why groups like the PF Warriors are so incredibly important.
Really good support groups are proactive, they're involved, they're the voice for moving the disease drug process forward.
22 years ago, I met this community of patients, but there was nothing for them. Pulmonary fibrosis was, people didn't know what the disease was. There was no real standard of care. Sometimes there were no dedicated clinics. There were no support groups. There were no drugs. What keeps me being inspired is actually this interaction with patients, with families, with advocates, because many of them, you know, they become a part of your life, and it's really good to see them, you becoming a part of their lives in a good way.
We've had to make changes, but we just do it because we're just happy that he's here.
Yeah.
And I think it's made our family stronger. We've been married for 58 years, and it's been a joy to live with him.
We have friends now that we admire so much that we've met through this journey, and we in turn have been impacted by it in positive ways, not just negative. And we are collectively, as a family unit, all about not ourselves as much as others, and that's something we've learned through this journey.